Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome into another episode of Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel. Just the other day, we had some new news come out about the Michael Thomas ankle injury and how that is going to impact his availability for the Saints week 1. So we've got more information to talk down and break down as it regards to his fantasy value during today's mock draft. Additionally, we are going to be honing in and focusing in a little bit more on the Cam Akers situation, and I'll be talking through once again where I think Darrell Henderson should be valued on draft boards, and I've selected a draft pick position today where I think it would be appropriate to see him go. So thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. Go down and give it a like before we get started. Let's hit that intro and get right into today's picks. Alright, here we go. So we've got some exciting news as it relates to Sleeper Fantasy here. Kicking off today's video, they have updated Cam Akers ADP. So when you head over to Sleeper Fantasy and you do your mock drafts, when you have your leagues here and whatnot, we'll actually look him up here and take a quick look. His ADP has fallen down all the way to 300. That's pretty fair, I would say. And that's basically undrafted territory. He's not getting picked except in the deepest of deep leagues because there is a slim chance he does come back down the stretch of the season. However, that's fairly unlikely. Additionally, Darrell Henderson's ADP has been updated. We'll take a peek at that and discuss and potentially target him here on the draft board as it pertains to his fantasy value and where I think he should be going. But essentially what I talked about in last week's video, Darrell Henderson, you see his ADP is 43 right now. So we're talking about an early to an early to mid fourth round pick. So not exactly quite in the mid to late third round, which is where I'm advising that he be picked for fantasy teams this season, but he is being picked relatively high, and you see that obviously the ADP is adjusted. So that's going to keep changing throughout the offseason. We're going to find new information out about him, and obviously he's questionable right now as he's dealing with some stuff as we head into training camp here. So a name that you might want to look out for in a Dynasty league, if you've got Darrell Henderson on your team, out of course, would be Xavier Jones, who's the next man in line. Maybe the Rams bring someone else in here, but here we go. The picks are flying off the board now. Maybe the Rams bring in a veteran. Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, obviously a former dominant Rams player, are all options out there on the free agent market. But at the moment, Adam Schefter, I think it was actually Ian Rappaport, reported that they're not entertaining the idea of a vet just yet. So we went with the 111 draft pick here, and boom, this is a full PPR mock draft again, like our Saturday mock draft episode was, so make sure to check that out if you were new around here. Also, as we get into my draft position here, just a quick shout out to the subscribers that are a member of the SFS free community Discord. You can join that and become a member, as well as get access to these mock draft invite links every single week. We do 2 mock draft episodes a week, and you'll have access to those by going down and clicking that link in the description and getting yourself set up there. But here we go. The 111 draft spot. So we did the 112 last time, trying to demonstrate that Darrell Henderson injury and how that plays into things here. We'll get into Michael Thomas in a second. But essentially, just like last episode, however, I do hold my own fate a little bit more in my hands than I did then. Last episode, 10 out of the first 11 picks were all running backs. This time around, we've got 8 of the first 10 go. So a little bit more room to wiggle here. I might go for an Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler are my 2 top running back names on the board. Additionally, we've also got some pretty darn good-looking receivers on the table that I can play here as well. But I'm not going to waste too much time here. I'm actually going to go out and take Aaron Jones here, just pull the trigger. This is the one player that I think that in Green Bay right now, we aren't going to see too much swaying and impact on his fantasy performance, whether or not Aaron Rodgers comes out and plays right now. Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are both reportedly frustrated with the organization. Davante has cut off contract extension talks with the team. That's not good. And they both posted that Michael Jordan last dance photo on their Instagram story. So there's a lot of drama going down in Green Bay right now. Not something that you want to be a part of. But Aaron Jones is a player that, with or without Rodgers, he's going to get his numbers. He's going to get his work. He's a really efficient player on actually relatively limited work share in that offense when Rodgers is healthy. And if you remove Aaron Rodgers from the equation, it would be stupid to not expect that Aaron Jones would see an increase in volume just for the sole fact that they're not going to be as elite at the quarterback spot. So they're going to have to lean on the run game just a bit more. So again, the reasoning for that draft choice is that I feel comfortable and I feel confident that with or without Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones will put up RB1 numbers and be that step-up player that we're looking for here. So there's a chance I could pair him with Davante Adams here, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to rule that out of the equation altogether because I don't really want to stack two players from the same team that have so much, drama and question marks going on with him at the moment. If Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, I'm playing the 2021 NFL season with the Green Bay Packers, Davante Adams is going to move back in front of Tyreek Hill. Those two are going to flip-flop. He actually went all the way up at the 1-4 in today's full PPR mock draft, which is insane. In no world should Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, even Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb even be going after. Heck, Ezekiel Elliott I would not pick after. I would not choose Tyreek Hill over those players. So I like Tyreek Hill right around that 1.9, 1.10 spot. I do actually think Travis Kelce's the more valuable pass catcher for that Chiefs offense in fantasy, but that's not how things went in today's board. It's fine. It doesn't really impact my draft at the moment here. I might just go back to what I did last time. I think Stefon Diggs is the clear-cut best choice on the board at this spot. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, he was saying things the other day. He recently deleted that tweet about his frustrations with the NFL's COVID policy. But DK Metcalf, I don't expect to see as much volume as a Stefon Diggs. And again, Davante Adams, we don't know what his quarterback situation looks like. So for the second straight mock draft, my pick in the second round is going to be Stefon Diggs. Look, he's got the number one overall wide receiver type upside. I think that this is a player that you look at this wide receiver crop, the top 4 or 5 names could all finish as the wide receiver 1, and that is certainly not without question. I don't think that that's the same situation in the same scenario if you were to look at the running back group. You've got Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, sure, they could all do it. Alvin Kamara did it last year. I suppose Derrick Henry could do it, but I don't expect that from him this season after seeing how dominant he was last year and only finishing as the RB2. So I think that your chances of finding the number 1 overall player at the running back position are a lot lower than they are at the wide receiver position. So that's why we got to pull the trigger early on those running backs. An early draft pick of Pat Mahomes, not something I love to see here. Again, I talk about this almost every video now. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. In some cases, people will value Russell Wilson in that tier. I think they all give you just as good of upside as Patrick Mahomes on just a slim marginal difference in consistency. It's not that large. It's a very small difference. And yeah, Pat Mahomes is probably the best NFL quarterback, the best franchise quarterback in the league right now. But when we're looking at fantasy numbers and the rushing upside that all 4 of those players, Russell Wilson, not so much anymore in this stage of his career, but they all give you such great potential to produce there. So not something I'm overly concerned about whatsoever. Another thing I want to mention really quick before we move past or at least get too far into the third round here is the receiving value that Aaron Jones provides. When he finished as the RB2 in the 2019 season, he was an incredibly productive receiving threat, and that's very, very important to be aware of here in these full PPR mock drafts. This is a guy that comes out of the backfield and gets passes, and now is the clear-cut best receiving option out of the Green Bay backfield. It ain't A.J. Dillon. And Jamal Williams was forking into his workload last year. People did not realize that. Jamal Williams was on the field 40% of the Packers' offensive snaps. That's a significant marker. Aaron Jones barely played half of them at 52%. So you look at a player who finished as RB6 last year and RB2 the year prior. Last year was a down season, and it was rather disappointing for Aaron Jones, in my opinion. So go out there and scoop him up this year. I think that the value is all there to be had, and maybe it's not even so much of a value play as it is just an intelligent decision at the top of the board. I don't think you're going to come out here and win your leagues by picking Aaron Jones at the 111 draft spot, but it gives your team the capability to not lose it with that first pick. So Michael Thomas just went off the board here, and this is something I want to talk about before we get too far. Last video, we were all over the place. There's a lot of NFL news coming out. We've got Deshaun Watson to talk about in today's video, I suppose, as well. That's big relevant news. Michael Thomas had surgery in June, and for the sake of this projection, let's say it was in the first half of June. So early June, and I got to make sure I don't run this too long because I'm on the clock now. Michael Thomas had ankle surgery to repair some ligaments that he damaged during the last NFL season. So basically the report right now, again, I forget if it was Schefter or Rappaport, but you can go out there and find it's not very hard. Literally just type in Michael Thomas and you'll get what you're looking for. But it's expected that it's going to be a 12 to 16 week recovery timetable from the date of that surgery. So I don't think, based off of the digging I've done, and it hasn't been super in-depth, but I haven't exactly found, an exact date as to when he had that operation done. But 12 to 16 months. So, wow, that would be a long time. 12 to 16 weeks. We're looking at 3 to 4 months here. If you project that from early first half of June, we're not going to see Michael Thomas until late September, early October this season. So you're looking about, best case scenario, missing 3 fantasy performances out of Michael Thomas, maybe 5 if we get the worst end of things and it creeps into the first or second week of October. So that is going to impact his ADP. We see him go at the 3.7 there. I wouldn't be shocked if he falls at this point. I was talking about him in the 4th round in my last episode, but that was before I knew, and that was when we just heard about the surgery. Now that we know the timetable for recovery, I think that's going to plummet him down. He might fall to the 6th round. You never know, because you're missing the first quarter of the season. It's going to give us a great value for us fantasy players that can take advantage of it and draft him at the appropriate spot, but something to keep our eyes on here. And this played out perfectly, in my opinion. So I've got the choice of Miles Sanders or Daryl Henderson here at the running back position. My first 2 guys, David Montgomery, Chris Carson, who I love to take in the 3rd round, are both gone. So the pick is going to be Daryl Henderson here. And this looks like a bit of a reach, especially in a full PPR league. But look, I think the situation in Los Angeles is much, much better than it is in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles at this moment in time are just not as stable of an offense or as stable of an organization. Their play calling is a question mark. We don't know how Nick Sirianni is going to run things there. It might be a mess. I know with Daryl Henderson, I'm at least getting a mid-level running back 2 to pair with Aaron Jones, and I can sleep at night knowing that my running back position group is solid. This is not a elite group by any means, but I think that there is some potential for, they're going to have some RB1 performances each. So while, again, I'm not getting the highest upside in the world, I do think that the choice should be Daryl Henderson over Miles Sanders. That sucks there. Darren Waller goes off the board. I was actually kind of hoping he'd fall back down to me. So now I could actually pair Daryl Henderson with Miles Sanders. So some interesting things to keep an eye on here as we get into the early 4th round. But my main point being, I think that this is appropriate for Daryl Henderson to start being picked in the mid to late 3rd round. This is a full PPR mock draft, so his ADP is going to be a little bit later, but I wouldn't have liked to try and wait till the 4th and 5th round to take advantage of the running backs when that group is already getting so thin. But as it pertains to this video, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Josh Jacobs are 2 players I'd actually rank behind Daryl Henderson, and then I would put him right behind that David Montgomery, Chris Carson tier. So if you're looking at how to value Daryl Henderson moving forward the rest of this fantasy offseason, he's right around my RB 18 or 19 overall on the board, and that's what was pretty much reflected in today's video. So things played out a lot nicer than they did on Saturday's mock draft, where his ADP was much lower and we didn't really anticipate him and forgot about him after talking about all the other crazy stuff that was going on. So he slipped down the board a bit farther in that video. So here in the 4th, I can either take advantage of a Josh Allen, a Kyler Murray, a Lamar Jackson, that tier 1 quarterback group that I talked about, where I think they're right there with Pat Mahomes, or we could dip back into the running back group. And I would argue get a clear positional advantage at that spot. You see here at the 1.1 spot and at the 1.2 spot, we've got people who have already went out and made 3 straight picks at the running back position. They've done that themselves. I might do it here. And their groups are stronger than mine. I actually really like that group there at the 1.2 overall spot with Dalvin Cook and Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift there as well. So I'm going to pull the trigger on getting Miles Sanders here. There's a lot of receivers. This is a PPR mock draft. But like I said, that position group's really deep. If I can get a Devontae Smith, a Diontae Johnson, Brandin Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, a CeeDee Lamb, those guys all potentially could be gone because I am picking late in the 5th round. But throughout the course of the draft board, I think there's a lot of favorable options there for me. So, and then quarterback, this is a 1 quarterback league. I'm not too worried about drafting too many players at that position group when I know for a fact there is so many names here. And while we're talking about the quarterback spot, we don't have a draft pick for another couple minutes or so here as we wait for the rest of the subscribers in the mock draft here to make their picks. in addition to a few AI selections as well. So again, if you want to join next week's mock draft or this Saturday's mock draft, all you got to do is jump down and click the invite link in the description of this video to hop in the free SFS community Discord. And then I drop that link multiple times before the video, making sure everybody can get in there and everything runs smoothly. So I'll communicate with you guys throughout the day and just let you know what's up with when I'm going to be recording and when you should be online ready to make your picks. So Deshaun Watson, let's pull him up on the screen here because, again, I don't pick for a while. So he is reporting to Texans camp. This is something that I have the whole offseason, and there you see the top story there at the bottom right corner of Deshaun Watson's player profile here on Sleeper Fantasy. I've been saying the whole offseason, I don't think he's going to play for him. I don't think he's going to show up. And a lot of ESPN analysts are saying that the Texans don't really want him there anymore, and Deshaun doesn't want to be there anymore. So this is a really awkward situation. This is uncomfortable for both sides. But why did Deshaun Watson show up for training camp? Well, he gets fined $50K every day that he misses practice. So my buddy Colton, who's got Deshaun Watson in our Dynasty League, actually just went out and had to focus on addressing the quarterback position this offseason while having one of the best players in the game at that spot, because he didn't know if he's going to have a quarterback this year. So he had to waste one of his draft picks on Trey Lance. Now it looks like D-Watt's going to play this year. And I was a huge D-Watt fan prior to all these allegations. I don't know if they're true, but it makes him sound kind of scummy. So I'm a little bit more questioning whether or not I should publicly put out there that I'm a Deshaun Watson fan. So if he gets convicted guilty of whatever those charges were, then Deshaun Watson's a no-no for me. But hopefully they aren't true, and the Texans had something to do with all that. But regardless, that's nothing to do with fantasy football. So yeah, my buddy Colton had to pick a bunch of quarterbacks, trade for some depth at the position. So he's actually here in the mock draft. If you want to check out what he's doing on the board, a very strong start for him. Alvin Kamara, Justin Jefferson, David Montgomery, and Robert Woods are 4 great picks here, and we'll see what he does in the 5th round coming up. But hopefully also soon in an episode we'll have Eric jumping in here. He's helping me, working hard on those draft profiles for the 2021 Draft Guide collection. We are doing draft guide profiles for the top 250 fantasy football players according to us this season. So we've got positional rankings in the big board, and right now we're just working on hammering out all of those player profiles. We've got like 160 something of them done, and our goal is to be done with that top 250 no later than the first week of August. So that draft guide kit will be completely done. We've got a rookie dynasty one as well, and we update those rankings as often as we can. Obviously, Cam Akers' injury has a big impact on that, and we've got some news to talk about with that. So we'll also be making some fashion of a PDF draft day cheat sheet with tier-by-tier analysis for you guys to bring to your fantasy drafts this season. So something to take advantage of. And again, if you haven't been around here for a while and you're unfamiliar with the rewards and opportunities in that Discord community, we're going to be, during August, pumping out some weekly giveaways. So just being in there and being active on that Discord chat will help you get access to free draft guide giveaways that will get you those draft profiles for free and just for simply heading over to our website and signing up for that. So super good stuff here. Colton ends up picking Mark Andrews. So a very strong start again. He just got himself a tight end 1 in the 5th round. And I think that while we're talking about tight ends here, give me Darren Waller over George Kittle every single day of the week. It bugs me that he's still being picked after. I mean, he went extremely late in this mock draft. I didn't want to miss out on my running back in Daryl Henderson, and then I ended up missing out on Darren Waller. So a lot of stuff going on here. I'm going to have to take a peek at the board right now, see what's going on. I do have the chance to pick my Tyler Lockett that I was talking about earlier. And then, Jamar Chase is on the board there, but I think it'd be foolish of me to pick a rookie wide receiver, although he is paired with one of the best chemistry connections in college football history with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Year 1, I'm not picking him over Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett is becoming a popular pick here on the channel, as every week it seems like I'm saying punch for punch, Tyler Lockett will go with the best of them in terms of fantasy football upside at the wide receiver position. So we'll make a quick draft pick there and take him, see what Willie Wallace does there at that 112 draft spot. And looks like he's got himself off to another strong start as well, jumping in there with an RB1 in Austin Eckler in this full PPR league, which is a sneaky pick. He is, I would say, his best trait as a player is his receiving ability, and he sees a lot of targets, saw over 6 targets per game in that Chargers offense during the 2020 season, where he only played 10 games, but he probably would have saw 100 targets, if we're being honest here. If you just do the simple math, he would have paced out to 101 targets, but in 10 games, he saw 65 of them. So you're looking at a player who has a significant involvement in that phase of the game. And while I think he's a bit lighter on running back than I typically like to see, the player he picked at that position is very strong. So he's got himself 2 wide receiver 1s in Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, and then my tight end 2 overall for this season in Darren Waller. So hats off to Willie Wallace, a great start today. Let's take a look at some other teams here from our subscribers from the Discord community. Let's see, at that 1.9 draft spot, we've got Zeke and DK Metcalf, the first 2 picks off the board, and I love that top 2 running back pairing with Ezekiel Elliott and Chris Carson. That's fantastic, and Chris Carson was a player I would have loved to pick at my 311 draft spot, but that's just not how things worked out today. That's fine. We figured out a way to pivot from that. Always have a backup plan and know what to do when things don't go your way on draft day, because very few times do you get all the players you want on the board. I'm not so big of a fan of the Travis Etienne pick. I think the 4th round is a bit early for a player who is being talked about having a gadget role as, a receiver. I think he's going to be more of a Percy Harvin type. There's a lot of stuff I don't like about that situation. Travis Etienne was my RB1 heading into this offseason, and in my Dynasty draft guide rankings for the rookie class of 2021, he, like I said, he was my rookie running back 1 before the NFL draft. As soon as Najee Harris became a Steeler, and honestly, for the first week of him being a Jaguar, I was all over the fact that, he was still going to be utilized with his former college quarterback. I was like, oh, this is Breeze and Kamara. And then Urban Meyer, the Jags head coach, comes out here and says, yeah, we're going to use him more of a weapon, and we're lining him up here during rookie camp as a wide receiver. And it was a really confusing situation, and I didn't really know exactly what to make of it. So let's see here. Then his next draft spot actually turned into TJ Hawkinson. I actually made note of that too. I like that pick a lot. TJ Hawkinson is my tight end 4 for this fantasy season, just ahead of Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. I think that Kyle Pitts, his upside, again, is probably as high as anybody, but I think at the same time, you're also looking at a player who, let's see what's going on here. It looks like the draft board is frozen. So, surprise, you get Jamar Chase as he's the next player based off of ADP, but what is going on here? Let's refresh, see what's going on. Hang on a sec. It looks like the draft board is having some struggles here. There we go. Okay, well, Jamar Chase and Justin Herbert. There you have it. So I've got my choice here. I forgot what I was saying, but essentially I think it was something I was talking about Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts has upside that, it goes with the best of them, but I think that, and then I got auto-picked. So excellent. I'll take Diontae Johnson. That's fine. He was one of the 2 players I was thinking about there. That's fine by me. I was either deciding between him or Devontae Smith or Brandin Ayuk. So I get my wide receiver 2 there, actually my wide receiver 3, and as a player who saw 144 targets last season, that's pretty good floor value for a PPR league. So Kyle Pitts for the 3rd time here. So he is a player who, you look at him and you just think this is a generational talent, but the tight end position is just so hard to hit on. And if you go back in the recent history and just look at tight ends, it's that simple. In their rookie seasons, and yes, none of them are quite as talented or look as physically gifted as, Pitts does, but I still think he's in a class of his own. I don't think that many people can ultimately reach the ceiling that he has as a player, but I don't expect it to play out in year 1. So as a guy who's going as the tight end, what does he go off? The tight end 5 on this draft board? I don't like that at all. I think that you're playing a really dangerous game. You want to make good quality picks in the first 6 rounds. Don't start gambling until rounds 8 or 9. That's when you can go find your risky upside players, but make the most intelligent decisions. And you should be thoroughly thinking through all of your draft picks, but where teams turn into really garbage fantasy teams is they just go out there and you get overly happy picking your guy, reaching too high, leaving way too much value on the table. Obviously everyone goes through that phase. My first year playing fantasy football, I got extremely lucky. When I looked back, and that was honestly one of the things that I think hooked me on fantasy so much, was I would just watch the game and I'd see these players make some cool highlights, and then I would just go out and draft the players I liked. And that's what a lot of people do when they play fantasy. But as a player who's been doing this for 7, 8, 9 years now, I should figure out, let's see. So let's go back. I think I started playing fantasy in 2014. So the 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This will be my 8th fantasy season. I was picking guys just throwing darts at the board. And I remember I picked Randall Cobb in the fantasy season when he just happened to all of a sudden be a 1,000-yard player as a Packer fan. You see him in the background, or I guess the other side here. That was the player I watched when I was growing up. And then I picked Wes Welker, Peyton Manning. I picked all the Broncos. And then they just happened to have a very good follow-up season to that historic 2013 performance. And all these picks I was making were just players I liked, and it was working out great. But I figured out that this is fun because you can find sleepers that have that crazy upside late in the board, but I was picking them earlier than they had any business being drafted. So the point being is that I should have just been garbage, bottom of the barrel in the league, a terrible player, but I got extremely lucky. And at the end of the day, you can get lucky in fantasy football, but it's better to make these smart choices early and rely on that upside later. So let's see. Let's just do some roster analysis here. What does it look like our team needs at this moment in time? We've got a really strong top 3 running back group. I would say that Aaron Jones is certainly the safest of the bunch by far. I still feel very, very safe with Daryl Henderson at that RB2 spot, but just like Cam Akers, he does have some nagging injury problems. So I'm absolutely going to look, maybe my 15th round pick, just because I have Daryl Henderson on this team. Maybe I go out and pick an Xavier Jones and just try and make sure I lock him up for this lineup. Miles Sanders has a relatively low floor, I'd say, but you're talking about a guy who is my RB3 for my lineup, which is much better to have than your RB2. So, and then Stefon Diggs, Tyler Lockett, Diontae Johnson, I think is a beautiful top 3 wide receiver core. And I'll keep adding to other position groups here. I might even dip back into the wide receiver group. It all depends on who I think is available on the board. I don't love the tight ends right here, so I'll likely pass. And it is expected that Zach Ertz, by the way, will stay a Philadelphia Eagle this offseason after all the trade and release rumors. So even though Dallas Goedert is now the starter there, it's looking like he will still have Ertz as a presence on that team. The quarterback group, I don't think I need to draft too bullishly with this pick. I could invest into a 4th running back here. Maybe at the top of the 8th round, I pull the trigger. It seems like a bit of a reach, but I could take a Michael Carter here, who I think has better long-term upside. I'm not doing that here in the 7th, though. I would wait minimally until the next time around the board. And while I'm at it, too, I could reach a slightly bit further. And like I said, this is when you can start going for that upside and going for riskier picks is in the 8th and the 9th round. I'm going to take a safer draft pick here, and I think I'm actually going to take... See, I'm not overly in love with any of these players is the thing that makes me so about making these decisions. There's a lot of names I could go with here. Personally, I like Tom Brady and Jalen Hurts at the quarterback spots. I think that it's kind of stupid that Trevor Lawrence is rated above them. We should definitely pull back on him a little bit. I think Tom will be really good in the first 3 quarters of games, but I've talked about this for the last month or so now. It feels like I think Tampa's going to be winning a lot of games late and just not passing the ball. And in turn, what that's going to do is, they're going to run the ball, and they're going to be running out 4th quarters because they're front runners. That's just what they're going to have the luxury of doing because that team is so good. I'm going to take Brandin Cooks here. This is an incredibly good... Seems, again, this is a little bit early to be drafting him, but I think that I've got my guys here at this spot on the board. They just went out, the Texans, that is, and acquired Anthony Miller, who is frequently injured but very, very explosive and very talented. I think that he has some really nice upside, and I think he might end up starting for this Texans team. Obviously, they acquired him from Chicago, but I think at the end of the day here, Brandin Cooks is still the clear-cut number 1 option on this team, and he saw 119 targets last year, playing second fiddle to Will Fuller. So there's a lot of room for improvement. I think that this Texans team is going to be so bad. They only won 4 games last season. that they're going to be the exact opposite of Tampa Bay and passing the ball like madmen trying to catch up late in the fourth quarter. So a lot of volume is on the plate right now for Brandin Cooks, and I think it could be a very productive season for him. And again, this is my wide receiver 4 on this team, as I have not invested into tight end or quarterback yet. So there is crazy value to be had at this spot on the board. I kind of want to pull the trigger one more time on the running back that I like, because I think that the guys I like the most, and it's like they can hear me. In this last video, I was in a complete conundrum. These guys, the subs picked all the players I wanted off the board before my 112 draft spot, and I had to take a strategy I just absolutely did not like at all. And I actually pretty much faded running back a lot longer than you would ever see me do. So there he goes. He picks Trey Sermon right after I was about to say, I'm going to pick Trey Sermon here. Well, that's not an option anymore. So I am going to go ahead and take Michael Carter for the sake of this team, for stacking guys up against one another based off of my paper rankings. I mean, I think that's why I do the profiles at the end of the day. I could just pump out these rankings for you guys and have numbers associated with players. But I go the step further. I do instant draft guide analysis, where I give you a ceiling rating and a floor rating out of 10, basically telling you how high they could get if they are very, very good players or not, if their upside is limited. Their floor being how safe they are on a week-to-week basis, how much production do I think that you can expect from them, or at least what level of production based off of the player you're taking them as can they give you. And then a risk radar, which is relative to their draft price. You know, how safe of a pick are they? You know, do I think that this is a player who should be going lower? That's going to be the players who tend to have a higher risk rating. And if they're players who I would absolutely draft at the current price, that's going to be a lower risk rating. So, and then I write about them. I recap their 2020 season, and I give them a projection and a situational analysis for 2021. And then I quickly do an overview of their draft price and what role I think they should be playing on your team. So, and for that reason, I'm going to take a Michael Carter, over a player like a Ronald Jones, who might be rated higher than him, but I think that for the purpose of this team serves a better role. I think that Michael Carter in a PPR league is going to be a guy that sees a lot of passes out of the backfield from Zach Wilson. I don't know why I almost said Josh Allen there. And then he's also going to see probably the bulk of the running work after the first month or so of the season. He's not the starter right now, but it's not going to stay that way. I think he's going to have a stranglehold on this job very quickly. LaMichael Pirine is big. He's a bruiser. He can do work on the goal line. But at the end of the day, he's just not dynamic enough to hold down a starting job for that long. And then if you want to talk about Tevin Coleman, he's a change of pace back at this point in his career. I don't think he can stay healthy for an extended period of time. And there's just a lot of risk that I think is associated with him as a pick. And I've talked about this as well throughout the offseason, that if you're going to draft Tevin Coleman, his ADP is crazy low. Here, we can scroll for him and find him here in a sec. There he is, 173. So he's literally still not even getting respect as a starting level player. Trade bait. Use Tevin Coleman, draft him in the late rounds of your leagues. He's going to come out the first couple weeks of the season, as long as he doesn't lose the starting job in the preseason or week 1 or week 2. If he has a couple good games, a couple average games at best even, trade him for a guy that might have more long-term starting role. Even a Ronald Jones, who is technically not the starter, that's Leonard Fournette in Tampa Bay, he's still going to see work. He's still going to get volume. He's still going to have production. There's so many other better options out there, but I think that Tevin Coleman gives us a really rare situation where his draft price is so low that you can potentially have a very easy scenario where you flip him for a lot more than you invested into him, which is obviously what you want to see, return on investment in the trade market. And I do trade advice videos every single week of the fantasy season, so be sure to subscribe and check those out during the regular season. I'll also be answering a lot of questions throughout the year. If you're commenting stuff, if you're in the Discord community and you're able to get your questions on there, or if you sign up for SFS Gold, I'll set your lineups for you. So there's a lot of ways to go about doing that. You can get SFS Gold from heading over to sizzlefantasy.com and obviously clicking on the tab at the top, I guess the menu bar of the screen, and hovering over SFS Gold. That'll get you the availability to be entered into that. And then obviously once you join the Discord community, you'll have special privileges on there that other players do not, which will indicate that you obviously have went the extra mile to get that level of fantasy advice. So Here we go. We're heading into the 9th round. Still tight end in quarterback list, but I'm completely fine with doing that. Rob Gronkowski is my guy down here if I'm going to fade the tight end spot early. I went through a phase, it seems like, in June where I was picking right in the sweet spot. It seemed like Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson were my guys just about every time. But I've started to, in mock drafts, show what it looks like if you fade that position. Gronk is the guy I'm going after here. Why do I like Gronk better than Robert Tonyan, Irv Smith, or Logan Thomas? Because I know exactly what I'm getting from him. He's going to score a touchdown or he's not. It's that simple. The rest of my lineup is so solid and so safe, in my opinion, that it's not going to make or break my fantasy week if Gronk does or does not score a touchdown. So, it might suck if he doesn't score a tutty, but I think that he'll give you just enough of what you're looking for at this draft price, and he will avoid the headache because even Mike Gesicki, you can sit there and drool over his upside, and of course, Gronk goes there. So now we've got to pivot yet again and find another one of these headache, high upside tight ends, but I can't really tell you what Mike Gesicki is going to give me on a game-to-game basis because he might go for 100 and then 20 the next week. So it's such a wishy-washy position. It's so hard to draft the tight end spot accurately without investing into those top-end names on the board. But that's the situation we find ourselves in here. So maybe we'll look at quarterback here. Not really sold, or I'm not really committed to drafting anybody at this spot. There's a lot of options we can take a peek at here. I like the prospect of taking Ryan Tannehill. He would be my next quarterback off the board here. I think we're pretty fine at running back after taking 4 quality starters. The wide receiver group isn't overly flashy. And again, how many wideouts do we have right now? 4 as well. We've got 4 running backs, 4 wideouts. Well, I guess that would make sense as we're entering the 9th round. Tonyan for my Packers, please don't draft him. He only saw 59 targets last season, and he caught 52 of them and somehow managed to score 11 touchdowns. That won't happen again. Stay clear of him this fantasy season. Maybe I'll wait and take an Evan Ingram down here and talk about him a little bit because he is a name I have not addressed nearly at all on the channel. So we'll take, what does A.J. Brown call him? Air Tannehill, R Tanny. He calls him something like that. One of the most underrated quarterbacks. He had 35 total touchdowns last season. Actually, it might have been 35 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns on top of that, I think is actually what his stat line was. Add in Julio Jones. This is going to be a much more efficient passing offense, and they're still going to formulate the team around running the ball with Derrick Henry, but I'll take it. I mean, you've got 2 X receivers lined out wide. It does not get much better than that, so I don't think that there's really a situation where I don't like having that option, and he can run the ball a little bit as well. So maybe I could take a Deshaun Watson around that territory in the future here if we know he's actually going to be on a team long term, but that's still not the situation I think we find ourselves in. Yeah, I'll fade tight end for a couple more rounds here. Maybe I double up on quarterback. Let's see what's on the table. I don't know. I don't think I want Deshaun Watson that bad or feel comfortable enough yet telling you guys that he will be out there on the field producing for us that early in the season. So I'm not going to come out here and spew any lies. How about Darnell Mooney? And this is a player who is going after Elijah Moore, Michael Pittman, Corey Davis. His ADP is going to rise now too. Give me some Darnell Mooney right here. And this isn't even overreacting to the Anthony Miller deal. That is freeing up more targets, more opportunities, and Darnell Mooney almost saw 100 looks last year. Foles, Trubisky, they were, in a football sense, airballing passes to him deep down the field. Mooney absolutely cooked Jalen Ramsey down the field in that Rams game, and he probably would have had I think it was like a 60-plus yard touchdown pass. Foles I think it was Foles that game, completely moonballed it and just missed him over the top, and that happened so many times last year. The ceiling for Mooney is crazy, and if you toss, Justin Fields into the mix there, the ceiling of Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney instantly increases, and I would argue that their floors do as well. So that's a really good and really underrated top 2 wide receiver combo. And as my 5th wide receiver on this team and one of my favorite fantasy sleepers, you see the stars if you're looking closely onto the players available on the draft board. I haven't updated those in a while, but those are just to help me when I'm making videos and I want to cite ADPs and whatnot. I'll just star a player real quick so I can find them easily on the board. And those stars that you see up there now were players from a previous sleeper wide receiver video. So you see Aguilar, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Russell Gage. Some of the guys didn't actually make it into the video, but They're players I like the idea of, essentially because of their late round ADP and the upside they give us. So there goes D-Watt and Joe Burrow, back-to-back picks. Looking back at Colton's team here, we should take a look at some of these first teams that we haven't broken down too much. At the 1-3, I love the fact that we went Henry, then Najee Harris, then Keenan Allen. Myles Gaskin isn't exactly the flashiest pick in the world, but in a PPR draft, he is very shifty and I think can do a dang good job catching the ball. And then Kyler Murray, that's a really strong first 5 rounds of the draft. You get yourself a wide receiver 1, 3 running backs that can be starters, and then one of the tier 1 quarterbacks in my eyes, like I said. Man, and then they just hammered out that wide receiver group. T. Higgins, Robbie Anderson, very underrated players. Robbie Anderson had 138 targets last year. That's crazy to think about. In an offense with Teddy Bridgewater that only threw 15 touchdown passes. But Robbie Anderson was not the guy, and none of the guys there were getting a huge haul of that load. So, yeah, really strong draft from him there. Here at the 1-2, I love the 3 running backs we started off the board with, and then using CeeDee Lamb and Chase Claypool as your number 1 and 2 wide receivers. I think CeeDee Lamb could finish as a top 12 wideout this year. I think it's a dark horse candidate because obviously Amari Cooper is still there. And actually, tomorrow's video is going to be, so I'm not going to spoil anything here, but tomorrow's video will be CeeDee Lamb versus Amari Cooper and going in depth to break down how I see that situation playing out. But nonetheless, CeeDee Lamb does some work down in the red zone. Amari Cooper is probably a better deep threat. There's a lot of stuff to break down. So I'd feel more comfortable if he was my wide receiver 2, but he certainly has that level of upside. He grabbed Mike Davis, Dak Prescott. Pretty strong group here. I might like to see a bit more depth at the wide receiver position for that team, but the running back group is hit so hard that, you know, he's going to have the opportunity to flip a Damian Harris, a Mike Davis midseason, and maybe get another wide receiver that will pop better for them down the stretch. Maybe Chase Claypool takes over that Steelers offense. He's got the best prototype and build, I think, of any of the players in that offense. You know, Diontae Johnson kind of plays that Antonio Brown role, but no one has that elite red zone catch radius that Chase Claypool has, and he's got some speed as well. So a sneaky draft for him over there, at least at the wide receiver spot. The rest of his group is looking really strong. And then I'm up on the board here, so I'm going to make my picks real quick, keep this thing moving along, and try not to make this video painfully long for you guys. The 11th round, I could pull the trigger on Justin Fields here. Be an interesting pick to make, and then hope that Evan Ingram falls to me at the next spot. Maybe the AI will snatch him up though. Russell Gage is still on the board. You see, there's other guys that I think have just as good of ceilings as Evan Ingram here. And I would argue that none of them have safe floors. And I actually see another name that if Evan Ingram's gone, I'm totally cool taking him. So I'm going to take Justin Fields here. I've got myself a little stack now with Ryan Tannehill and Justin Fields, with Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields, that is. I just talked about how once Justin Fields gets introduced to this offense, I think that the ceiling and the floor rises, because it's really sad to say, I've said this a lot as well on the channel here, Allen Robinson might have the best opening day quarterback of his NFL career, which has been 7 seasons long, I believe, at this point. And his name is Andy Dalton. Think about that for a second. That is crazy to me. Andy Dalton might just be the best quarterback that Allen Robinson has ever played with. Your options are Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, Mitchell Trubisky, maybe Mike Glennon. I forget if Robinson was there when Mike Glennon started in Robinson's rookie season. I don't believe he was, actually, because I think Robinson arrived in 2018 when Chicago won the division with Khalil Mack on that team. So maybe he didn't play with Mike Glennon, but still, he's not better than Andy Dalton. It's time for Allen Robinson to get a quarterback with respectable talent, and Justin Fields is that player. So it's time, Chicago, and Darnell Mooney is going to reap the rewards of that as well. So I like that little stack there, though, because I think that Ryan Tannehill can be a top 12 quarterback while I wait for Justin Fields to get the chance to start and to have his breakout performances. And it's really the matchup battle at that point. I think that Justin Fields and Ryan Tannehill both have really, really good upside. I talked about Tannehill's got 2 X wide receivers and the most terrifying running back in the National Football League. Maybe not the best fantasy player, especially in a PPR league, but Derrick Henry is a monster. Maybe he won't be a 2,000-yard back ever again. Maybe he won't see 17 touchdowns like he did last year, but he is something to behold. So I've got to choose here. I should make a strong... Okay, well, I'm on the clock here, so I gotta make a choice. Keep this thing moving along. Could take a Tony Pollard, a really strong handcuff play here. The wide receiver group, I might just pull the trigger on Russell Gage. I don't understand why Rondale Moore, Mecole Hardman, I get why they have fantasy upside, but I don't get why people are regarding them higher than a Russell Gage here at this spot. Cole Beasley might just see his ADP fall off a cliff as his whole team is bullying him into getting vaccinated, because he's been one of the most publicly anti-COVID vax players in the league. He's been the poster child for what the NFL is trying to get out of the league. So that's unfortunate for him. I might dip into the running back group one more time, just find myself a high upside handcuff. Handcuffs aren't something I love to do, and again, I talked about maybe picking an Xavier Jones later on here. That's something I could do. I'll take me a Russell Gage, though. It's the PPR league. He's going to see a heck of a lot of targets in that Atlanta offense. No Julio. You've got Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts to compete with now, and he was on pace for a monster season prior to, when Julio was out of the lineup, I should say. He was on pace for a monster season. Obviously, Julio played more games than not. He was only available for 9 of the 16. But in those 7 games where Gage had the field to himself as the number 2 option, with Ridley being bumped up into that number 1 role, he was very, very good. So one more note, and it seems like I get to a point where I'm just kind of throwing slander at Kyle Pitts, but another reason I don't like drafting him is Hayden Hurst. And you might be saying, oh, come on, Hayden Hurst, that's a joke. Really, you're not going to pick a guy because of Hayden Hurst, but no, Hayden Hurst is a former first-round pick. He is a legitimate NFL player with a tool and skill set in the National Football League. He was not a bum last season. He wasn't an elite fantasy tight end. Here he is up on the screen, but he put up relatively respectable enough numbers. We see, 3, 5, 6 receiving touchdowns. He had nearly, let's see if he had any really standout performances, but he's not a scrub, and it's hard to find productive players at the tight end spot. They're going to be running 2 tight end sets, and both of them are going to be on the field. So it's not like it's going to be completely 100% of the snap share going to Kyle Pitts, his team to lead. There's just too many factors that give me a little bit of worry here. So here we see, I don't even know how you say that, Geno Cat, I guess would be how you say that. His clock is winding down here, and that little green dot indicates whether or not they're actually on the board. So it looks like we've got 2 players that are not on. He's only got about 20 seconds. It'll be put on auto pick. Let's see, what else can we chat about here? One looking at the board. Evan Ingram is, as I said a couple rounds back, the tight end prospect I'm looking to target here. Why might I want to do that? Well, we've all kind of talked about and put some pressure on Evan Ingram in terms of the fact that he's been a guy who we've expected to lead this Giants pass-catching crew, and he was a former first-round pick. I believe he's out of Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. I should take a peek at that. I think he was an Alabama tight end. Come on, sleeper. Regardless, it's not very relevant to what I was saying, but the Giants, Mississippi. Okay, alrighty. I was incorrect. He happens to be a Mississippi player. So regardless, Evan Ingram no longer has to be the 1, not even the 2 option for this Giants offense. He just has to come out there and basically be a safety blanket for Daniel Jones. He now has this season, by the way, for the Giants, it's all about Danny Dimes. You got to show up or put up or shut up time for Danny Dimes. I mean, he's not like a boisterous personality. I'm not telling him to be quiet because he's boasting or anything out on Twitter, but they're making the season about figuring out if he is the franchise quarterback or not, and they've done a dang good job at putting pressure on him. You've got Saquon coming off an ACL, but then you bring in Kenny G off the free agent market on top of Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. There's a lot of guys there, and then you add in Kadarius Toney as your first-round pick is a very, very valuable gadget piece. He's actually in the COVID protocols right now, but he will, unless he sees some symptoms that are very extreme, he'll be ready for week 1 without a doubt, and he's a young, healthy person, so I wouldn't expect that to be an issue. But Ingram no longer has this pressure, and his hands have been like Butterfingers for basically his whole career. So if he can just catch the ball, he'll be just fine. Maybe he'll finally score us some touchdowns. I think he had 1 touchdown and made the Pro Bowl last year over Robert Tonyan. And as I just bashed on Robert Tonyan 10 minutes ago for the lack of volume he saw, it's still a safer pick than Evan Ingram. And, I think that Tonyan won't ever get to the target share that we see out of Evan Ingram, but Tonyan should have made the Pro Bowl last year just because that touchdown count was so high and whatnot. But let's see who goes out the board here on the bend. We've got 3 picks in a row here being made by subscribers. Maybe in future videos as we get that full 12 lineup here, I'll make this a 60-second timer so we're not sitting here all day. But we did chug through things fairly quickly, and I think this will actually be quicker than the Saturday episode was, assuming that we get through these last 2 rounds faster than we did previously. I'm only gonna do, well, I guess I didn't communicate that with everyone else because in last video I had to make Cam Akers my 16th round pick so that he didn't get drafted. His ADP had only fallen to like 19 at the time. It would have been a disaster. So I just put him down here so that he wasn't getting snatched up by computer picks, and then we went from there. But this time around, when I looked before I started the draft, his ADP was fixed, so I didn't have to worry about that. Nonetheless, only 4 picks left to make here. Yep. So we still need a tight end and a defense. That'll still be 2 of our picks. We've invested into depth at every other position. I feel really great about how this team is constructed actually. Excuse me there. Kirk Cousins, a big sleeper, goes out the board. Good pick of Evan Ingram there. So it looks like I'll probably go with somebody else. And I'll just make this draft pick since I actually need the starter here. It's time for me to take my boy. It's Adam Trautman season, baby. Let's go. Adam Trautman for the Saints. No Michael Thomas for a month. Give me some big old Adam Trautman down the red zone. Scoring tutties for Jameis Winston. Crossing our fingers, Saints fans. I'm not a Saints fan. The Saints fans I know, Colton, by the way, who I've talked about throughout this video. Good old Hoagie here. He's a Saints fan. He wants Jameis Winston as the starting quarterback because he's not a fool. And he realizes that Taysom Hill is kind of the gadget Tim Tebow effect. So he knows that team cannot produce up to maximum offensive efficiency for a full now 17-game regular season for each individual franchise. I think that Trautman could step up as a very dangerous pass-catching threat in this offense without Michael Thomas there. You don't have Emmanuel Sanders anymore. He didn't even really do that much for the Saints last season. The Drew Brees-led offense was not that great, and that's something that I think that Saints fans, although they're incredibly loyal and passionate about Drew Brees, I think they'll admit he was kind of a noodle arm last year and towards the back end of years previous. It's a legitimate thing that we're looking at here. So I might have Tevin Coleman fall right into my lap here as a handcuff. And like I said, that draft day trade bait here out of Tevin. Yeah, that's a simple draft pick. Not much to talk about there, as we already touched on that a bit. But Michael Carter is not the starter, and if he doesn't end up being that week 1, Tevin Coleman's that guy. And you can take Tevin Coleman, flip him before the news comes out that he's not the starter anymore, and boom, upgrade your starting lineup, find a really nice piece of depth, because that's ultimately what he is serving the purpose of for your team. So a sneaky move to play here. 2 rounds left to go, and only 1 more starting spot to fill out. Some defenses are starting to go off the board here a little early, if you ask me. But these are the best of the best defenses, and we're not seeing any terrible defensive draft choices anymore. So since there is a bit of a run, I have to consider it here with this next pick. And again, I actually talked about earlier, since I have Daryl Henderson, I wanted to make that Xavier Jones pick a thing because I didn't plan on drafting Tevin Coleman here as a handcuff, but I don't plan on having him on my roster all season if I were to actually play a league with this team. Xavier Jones is a player I'm coupling with Daryl Henderson, and it was ironically I was talking about pairing Cam Akers, if you were going to go that route, with Daryl Henderson. I was saying Cam Akers had some injuries last season. They concerned me a little bit. You should draft Daryl Henderson, and you should invest into a quality handcuff that will bail you out in weeks when he's injured, in weeks when he's not healthy. And I mean, I don't want to say like I told you so, because I never ever thought and never wished that Cam Akers would have this injury. I'm a dynasty owner of Cam Akers in that same league with Colton. I'm crushed, and I have Daryl Henderson in that league, and I'm feeling extremely lucky, and I was able to go snatch up Xavier Jones because I've got my sleeper notifications on, so I found that out right away and went out and picked up the third stringer and now second stringer, so I've got myself at least an RB2, but when I was hoping for a running back one with insane upside, it's kind of a gut punch to lose him on the team, but it at least kind of validates what I was saying, that he does have some injury history and concern, and he did get injured in a workout, so that's not something you like to see either, but hopefully he comes back to himself next year. That'd be great. I don't want to see him get injured and have any issues with that. It'd really suck if the Rams go out and pick a running back next season or something and sign somebody off the waiver wire, which will in turn, and I should clarify that by saying a significant free agent acquisition or a significantly high draft pick. We're talking rounds 1 or 2 here. So, and I actually don't know if the Rams have a first round pick next year. So actually, I think they're going to have to pick offensive linemen to begin with because their offensive line is very old. So maybe they don't even have the tools to go out and get another running back unless it is through the free agent market. That makes me happy now I talk myself through it because Cam Akers is a really special player. I've talked about him being Dalvin Cook-esque and kind of a blend of him and Aaron Jones. I would hate to see his career get cut short or minimized because of an injury he had in his second season. So hoping the best for him. Like I said, we had that little mini defense run here. I'm going to come out and pick the Dolphins. I don't think... Let's see. I could wait here. Is there a player I really want off the board between those two picks that I'm giving Willie Wallace the chance to make here? Javian Hawkins, I'm not sold on this one at all. It's a complete flash in the pan projection pick, and I'll admit the upside is there, but I would say that the guarantee of him doing anything is nothing. So just want to make sure I don't lose out on a player I might potentially like a lot here at this spot. I've already got 2 quarterbacks. I don't need a third. Only 16 rounds. I'm not really concerned about doing that. I think I'm just going to come out here and pick a second quarterback. Or, excuse me, a second tight end. I'm going to take Cole Kmet here for the Bears. Get another Chicago offensive weapon to work with Justin Fields when the time comes. And I'm just hoping that Dolphins defense is still there. If not, I'll take the... and there, we're fine. I was going to say I'll take the Colts, but the Dolphins, give me some Brian Flores blitzes, some disguised looks, some of that zone coverage, some Xavier Howard picks. Hopefully Byron Jones cannot suck this year, and they should be pretty solid. I mean, that's a group that runs fast. They cover a lot of ground really quickly, and it's just an unpredictable unit. Offenses have a lot of trouble producing and putting up good games against them. We saw Pat Mahomes threw 3 picks against them, so they've got some ball hawks and some playmakers back there. That's a team I think we should be on the lookout for. And we've got 3 picks left here, and then we'll go into the intro. So, yeah, it's been a good team here. I'll just recap the group really quick, not waste too much time for you guys. So we've got Ryan Tannehill topping things off at the quarterback spot, Aaron Jones and Daryl Henderson at the RB1 and 2 positions, and Stefon Diggs and Tyler Lockett, a wide receiver pair I really like with their upside there. Adam Trautman, we waited a long time, didn't pick a tight end until the 13th round, but at the end of the day, you talk about some of these injuries to Michael Thomas, the departure of an Emmanuel Sanders, you got to throw to somebody in it. I think that Adam Trautman might be that guy. Sean Payton loves his tight ends. Miles Sanders and Diontae Johnson as my top reserve options, and the Miami Dolphins defense as that, obviously the only defense I picked. The bench is what I really love here. When I fade tight end, I find that I love my positional depth a lot. And when I fade quarterback, and you do both of those things in one mock draft, one league, you're going to have a really, really strong reserve core. Brandin Cooks, Darnell Mooney, Russell Gage, I feel really good about those backup wide receivers. I think that we've got multiple players who could have wide receiver 2 weeks and very strong ones at that. At the running back spot, Michael Carter and Tevin Coleman, I think is a very, very strong duo that will, in turn, one or the other is going to hit. And yeah, it's the Jets. Their offense isn't amazing, so they're probably a fringe RB2, but Michael Carter, I think, obviously has the higher upside of the pair. And then Justin Fields and Cole Kmet, some more Bears to give me that long-term upside that we're projecting for here down the stretch of the season. So that was today's draft. We'll see you guys in the outro. All right, that was another episode of Mock Draft Monday here on the SFS channel. Let me know down in the comment section below, did you like my draft strategy today? Did you agree with my picks? Would you have went elsewhere? I want to hear it. Let me know and give me your opinions on today's draft board. But if you, again, want to be in next week's video, I'd love to see each and every single one of you in there. All you got to do is head down into the description of today's and every video and click the free invite link to join the community Discord. All you got to do, click that link and you'll be invited right in there. And then within a few hours, myself or Eric will make you an official member of that group chat. And whenever I post an invite link to a new mock draft that'll be featured here on the channel, you'll have the opportunity to click on that. It's first come, first serve, but you can be on the channel here and in the videos. And if you watched in depth today, you saw I spent some time breaking down some other teams' lineups. So one more time, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.